Bene, buon pomeriggio a
Okay,
tutti.
good. Good afternoon to everyone from the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum, the European University of Rome. We are connected here in online with it for this fourth seminar of this year, dedicated to the challenges and digital development. We'll continue now with this wide theme, big theme. Especially this year, we are dedicating our attention to, we're focusing on the development of virtual reality and of augmented reality of the so-called metaverse. We have already done three seminars, which range from characterization of the definitions and history of this subject, and also the field of the technological field, in the technological field. And in this fourth session today, we have some friends, some guests who have. We are very happy to have them once again, and they participated in the past, and we're happy to have them here because they participated. Many of them have collaborated as researchers, and they have helped us in all the programs that we've done and the field of robo ethics. And on the 14th of December of 2018, back then, we did that beautiful seminar in the big classroom hall in the lecture hall. Carmine came. We had a great seminar which talked about the hybridization between man and machine and skeletons and neurohybridization. And this afternoon, once again, we find ourselves here in order for a new seminar entitled "The Metaverse in Neurosciences and Neurorehabilitation." Our I'll say something about our two guests that we have here with us. Dr. Marco Youssef, he's a mechanical engineer and does research in neurophysiology. He's associated professor in the Department of Psychology of the University Sapienza in Rome. And also he's in charge of the Smart Lab, okay, in rehabilitation, he's technology, and the ex Foundation of Santa Lucia. I have a link to his curriculum, his CA, because it would become, he has a long career, and it's really moving and interesting in the field of interface and of knowledge and the multidisciplinary approach between research and engineering and this. Okay, I bring up once again that Marco Youssef dealt with the three laws of Asimov, three laws of robotics, and rehabilitation. He wrote some articles on this. I remember very much what they said at that time. And we also have the pleasure to have Dr. Marone. He's a neurosurgeon. He's a doctor of research in neurosciences. He's a teacher of rehabilitative medicine and Milus, and from 2007 to the present, he's a medical research at St. Lucia, and he works. Okay, he's dealt especially with therapy for recuperation for patients with neuropathologies with robotic devices with very innovative technologies. This is the field of virtual reality. This will bring us into that, and the theme of sensors for transcranial face stimulation, etc. Now, therefore, we can say that I insert him in the mailing list in the curriculum, his CV. They are experts, most of these figures, and they enter into this theme of the application, more the application of virtual reality and augmented reality in the so-called metaverse, but in a field that's the field which we really like, the field of the treatment and therapy, and which puts the person at the center, in the field of services, and the field of not the substitution, but of the inclusion, which we talked about a lot regarding the substitutive paradigm, which includes within their teams and their research groups, certainly, and develop technological groups, the digital, which are digital. And I think instead of narrowing the field, they widen the horizon. And I'm also very happy. I'm very happy to have them here in this afternoon in this seminar. And they will try to listen to the expertise and and therapeutic practices, which today can be used, can make use of these developments and these approaches. So it's a technology and it's a development that we want to look at it with a critical way, not in order to destroy it or to demonize it, but in order to take out all that's positive in these digital technology. We need to look at this positive side, which already today in various sectors, I think also including the neurological and surgical field. There are some applications in neurosurgery as well. There already exists these things as their virtual reality and augmented reality exists already. This new concept, even though it's quote unquote new of this metaverse. Okay, I just wanted to greet our two friends. And in addition to friendship for years, we've dealt with them. You were speaking about, I wanted to add some reflections. We met years ago when you illustrated the progress that we have made and what science and medical sciences had made regarding the rehabilitative robotics and artificial intelligence, which channels of robotic medicine and for the assistance of patients. Now, after a few years, we're speaking about the metaverse now. Now, I take this fact as a paradigm of the changing of times and how progress, how science progresses. We have an idea of what would have been at that time, and to this, we would have had an idea of how much technology would go ahead in science. And Professor Carrara said that it's a little bit of what which fascinates us and which also worries us a little bit, because this crazy race risks losing sight of the human subject. So we try to bring back the observation and the study onto the human subject between the person. But here, I made this reflection, how time runs and gets out of our hand. This is a demonstration of how progress is moving. And this, which is a crazy, insane but your presence here really okay, we're speaking the same language in the philosophical and ethical and bioethical sense. Okay, I thank and I greet my friends, Narone and Marco Joseph, who are present. I really thank you for your presence, for coming here to be with us. Now, just for the respect of the institution that's welcoming in February, I was at the University of Aquila. I'm clinically convention with. This is a recent thing. I just wanted to mention where I'm working now. Okay, in Aquila. I wanted to thank you, Professor for the invitation. It's always a pleasure for me to participate in these seminars. It's maybe the only one in the panorama of these seminars regarding technology, because we often participate in similar seminars, but with in the field of engineering and also psychology. Giovanni comes from medicine. He's managing the robotics conference. I think we'll speak about that. And okay, so we have this field where we go to seminars a lot, but the reflection there, that's so at 360 degrees, which includes ethics. That's different for us. Look, on the one hand, what we've done and what will happen later, and to look at the lights and the shadows of technology. When we speak about technology, it's really I'm very happy to speak about it in this way. It really is. This is unique what you're doing here, because if we reflect as Claudio Bonino said, we risk doing and going without knowing where we're going. We just let ourselves be taken up by events instead of guiding or channeling events. It's really, it's real pleasure to participate at this seminar with you for the depth of reflection that often is lacking in other places. It's the pleasure of man of almost on the of letting himself be influenced by the technology and the expectations that the technology has. Sometimes we lose the sight of a wider horizon. Don Claudio said, this example always comes to mind. Then I'll let Claudio speak and intervene. When I was a young person, when I was a child, he said that the future would be of robots, of interspace. That's what we were expecting. That's what the books told us. And the science fiction films told us. What do we have now? We have a robot who's on Mars, which is more fresh. And you saw the rover, and it's a very beautiful technology, but that's not what we expected. We don't have robots that we would expect, just like we don't have exoskeletons that could help persons in walking. We don't see persons who walk around with their skeletons, exoskeletons, but it's been 20 years that we're speaking about rehabilitative robotics, but with the promising developments. But this progress, this is taking a long time to come. We didn't expect that as a young child. The cell phones that connect us all into a world, a digital world. And in fact, we have digital social networks in which shows aspects of us which uh, and now we've reached the metaverse. Will it be realizable? Is it a fall? Will it be a false promise like robots, or will it really be a real revolution of the internet? We don't know. That no. This seminar will allow us to reflect on this and to reflect on what we're doing and to look at ourselves inside and understand ourselves and which direction we're going, and not let us be taken up by technology, because technology, as Claudio says, it runs. We are the ones who need to manage it and challenge it. We should not let us be taken up by technology. Otherwise we'll have a robot without control. We need to know where to bring it and what the principles that should guide science from this point of view. I share my worry as well. I second what you're saying, and I second the beauty of the course because technology doesn't by itself doesn't bring us anywhere, but we're losing, and it's important to look as these cycle of seminars shows how we need to see how man changes as technology develops, and the concept of humanism here is very important. Our neurorehabilitation changes. Okay. Now I share my presentation now. Perfect. You can go. You can do it now. Can you see it? Man changes, and here we need to consider another aspect here because Okay, just one moment. Just one moment. Can you just for a moment? No. Okay, can you take away the screen share for just a moment? Just excuse me, because there's we return to the preceding one. There was an interference here. There was interference with YouTube. Okay, you can go. Now you can go. No. I was saying, Giovanni, man changes as well, and the new role from 2 years. I've been working in psychology. Let's see how psychology changes. Now in this fourth, okay, in the history of the metaverse, I was talking about how I looked at it when I was no. Okay, therefore, you perfectly know what the metaverse is. It's a space of definition. Certainly, it's a space of 3D, which will connect users and persons in various aspects of their lives. It's a connection. It's a platform through browsers, obviously, and you could access various sites. And in fact, the development, I don't know how much natural it is, how it puts other aspects together, which can be parts of virtual reality. You know perfectly, the metaverse has had a very rapid spread from 2018. We didn't expect it. We didn't even speak about it early. It was not a word of common use, thanks to two things. Now, Zuckerberg mentioned it, who's the owner of Facebook, and he changed the name of the company. And he said the judicial and problems connected with the trials that Facebook had to face, the judicial process regarding after the election of Donald Trump in America. Zuckerberg was put on trial, and he tried to reshuffle the cards, and he changed the name of the company, and he moved the attention to something else, which would not be the behavior of Facebook regarding privacy. It's not only the company that just changes its name. It's a company that is part of this life, because Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger, and not by chance, they bought Onlus, or the company that produces the helmets of virtual reality. Okay, no, 2018, the film came out, which is Real Player One, which is done by Spielberg, directed by Spielberg, who took a book from 2011 and brings us into this metaverse, in which persons normally have two lives: the common motor life and this alternative life in a completely different, completely digital world. We are overwhelmed by meta um, uh, advertisements, and where we say that children can participate in ancient road during the Senate and the assassination of Julius Caesar, and that they could interact with cells in order to see how a cell is made up, how it is, and to while at the same time with just a helmet on their head, sitting at home with their virtual reality helmet. And it can be helpful from an educational uh, uh, and and it can help in the relationship with medicine. It's not only from the point of view of meta relationship with. There's also a close relationship between this future, the same advertisement that we mentioned regarding Tim, a person in this little church. They take a. There's a future of school. Okay, no, sorry. This is the idea of a long distance operation of a surgical procedure, or the participation with remember that advertisement where the woman could participate at the marriage of her daughter with a helmet on, and she could participate in. Now look, this technology is there. I threw a robot which on the patient, and I really am seeing on the TV. I'm not over the patient, but I'm commanding the robot and looking through a visor. I could be in another room, and I could be on the other side of the world. It's just a question of connection. Technology would already be there. That advertisement is not absurd. What's the what's what we need, though, is to be juridically prepared for that, and also psychologically. Now, if there were a problem, for example, what problems could we have? Let's say if the patient and the judge one day, no, if there's a problem, which could be a problem because of internet connection with the robot of the surgeon, are we not yet ready to manage this? Technology is not quite ready for this, but we see there now in school. In the evening here, we did some advertisement here. There's a bit of publicity here. The future of school is already that, and the 5G classes. It's a shame that in the pandemic when we do long distance didactics with children who are very, very, very bored, this long distance learning which did not bring the benefits. The Ministry of the Italian Educational Ministry have given very, very bad results regarding the academic progress of kids who are dependent on long distance learning. Now, during lessons, many kids turned off their a computer, and they immediately went to play video games online while the classes were going on. Another aspect, I'll leave the rehabilitative part to Giovanni, that all of this changes really, it really changes our psychology and my students in psychology. I told them, prepare yourself because there are going to be new problems. The digital psychologist, Asimov, remember one of you regarding the three laws of Asimov, the three laws of neurorobotics. Asimov spoke of robo psychology in the 1950s when he wrote about robots. Okay, psychology that should be the psychologist of artificial intelligence. There's already a vision, according to me, which is fantastic, which really foresaw what would happen. We're speaking about artificial intelligence, and what intelligence is. They didn't. The motor programs didn't know what that. But what is intelligence, though? And the machine learning, artificial intelligence that learns more as it works. But what is learning? What is learning? Some pedagogical and psychologists know that, but it's not given that the programmers need to know that. The same way that neural networks, which are parts of our brain, which can include, and those who do, they can make professional figures who know what neurology is and how a natural neural network is. In the same way as psychometrics, those who are able to measure this. After that, technologies need to have a certain usability. I always tell to my kids, I leave them this question: when I was your age, in 20 years, in the first before the cell phones, when I bought it, why was there such a big box when I bought my first cell phone? But maybe, and some. There was a manual of instruction. It's true. And that's why it was an enormous book that was an instruction manual, which we don't see any longer. It's so intuitive, digital technology, that even children at the restaurants from 2 years old, we see that they interact with digital technology, and you don't need any manual instruction manual any longer. Okay. I'm speaking about smartphones, but it could also be true for. Now, with that inclusive approach of universal design and planning everything that guides, this is why technology is very, very extremely intuitive now. And digital learning, this in the sixth seminar, we're doing it long distance, but also the concept of and infotainment to learn through digital technologies, which are more motivating. Cognitive rehabilitative neuropsychology. There's also cognitive rehabilitation. Obviously, digital technology play a fundamental role for the evaluation of the patient and also in rehabilitation, but also they use rehabilitation as a help and as a facilitator. In addition, it's enough to think that once I knew the number of my friends' telephone numbers, and now I don't know my friends' phone numbers any longer. It's no longer an instrument. It's an extension of my memory. Yeah, I have my calendar and my appointments for tomorrow and day after. It's become an extension of my memory, my cell memory. The use of avatars, which are more and more beautiful, and digitization of art, and the possibility to visit museums in a remote way before the pandemic, even to see Circus Maximus with virtual reality helmets to be able to do, because Circus Maximus was one of the biggest stadium of the world, but now it's just a flat grassland. And with a helmet, you can see what it used to look like, and you can interact with the Roman structure. That's really fascinating, amazing. And we can see how the behavior man changes regarding the interaction between man and psychology, digital texture, which internet has completely overturned the way that we look at virtual reality. Okay, now we have a social behavior, on social networks, which is a different reality and can bring us to problems in the sense, for example, cyberbullying, but also in adults, fake news or gaming, playing online, which can bring people to digital addictions, to wanting to always stay connected. And this is another subject which psychologists should face and deal with. So we should not only look at the demonization, but also the positive sides. Some psychologists will have to face problems of their clients regarding connection with digital problems, and others could be hired by companies to give their contents brain friendly, to make their contents more brain friendly, that they be more usable and user friendly, and which know the mechanisms of our brains, and which therefore they can improve our means of learning. It's a double-edged sword. If you know the mechanisms of your brain, I can in some way also play a dirty game, and it can bring my attention to certain things and to give you subliminal messages, and to force me to be connected, or at least to facilitate wanting to be connected and bringing me to digital addiction. We open here new scenarios, and we need to be ready for them. And ethically, we need to be ready to know what the risks that we're going to face and to decide, as we said earlier, where we want to channel these technologies, where we want to direct them. Maybe, okay, the metaverse is not just meta. Many companies are preparing. Fortnite, that game, is a taste of the metaverse because the kids play from their homes and all together on a virtual island. That game is a war game where they kill each other, but obviously without demonizing anything. It's a game. Once we used to play with wooden swords, but no, it would. Microsoft is concentrating on company applications. On the left-hand side, you see this, a little screen on Teams mashing, where they can have these meetings with avatars, which are very connected to portable devices. And they're aiming at augmented reality rather than the metaverse. And I see something more. I point my smartphone onto a road, and it says that what that monument is that I'm looking at, or what the closest restaurant is. Yeah. And there, Roadblocks is a platform of gamings where they develop, which is developed by children. They open in concert to events of a fashion. Sandbox was a game, but it became a virtual world. Okay. The multiverse. Now this island, this video game of cyberspace where they play. And it's not only that, because it's open alternative realities. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, there was an organization of Travis Scott, Astronomical, where there were 12 million persons that participated. The place was organized. This nice place of the island, which was the sweaty sand. This is an island in Fortnite. There's a reef and a graph of, in August 2021, there was a Rift Tour, which was held in Fortnite by Ariana Grande. And in November 2021, there was Epic Games that removed the ballet of Scott and cut the bridges with the artist after the death of 8 persons in his Astroworld concert. Now, Roadblocks is this game in which the children...
di bambini, quindi 1,5 milioni di bambini, molti dai 7 anni in su,
okay. The risks. What risks are there from the ethical point of view? And these children, when they make money for Roadblocks, for them it's a game, but someone is making money off of them. The children don't really know it. They don't care. Well, it doesn't matter. These are questions. Should they be made aware of that, or should they not be made aware of it? Many of these kids are less than 7 years old. It's used by 1.5 million children, some adults. Done an investigation on this. In practice, they saw there. In theory, these platforms have a system of automatic blocks. Some of these kids actually put together neo-Nazi groups. Even they've done all sorts of things. But in any case, now we need to look at the content, the importance of contents in these metaverses. Okay, the reality of the metaverse. Where does it come from? It comes from the book for the first time that spoke about Neil Stevens spoke about this writer of cyberpunk science fiction from 1959, Snow Crash, which in a world in which capitalism has gone beyond any limit. The protagonist lives this digital reality in a virtual world, which is this metaverse. Hero protagonist is a deliberator, 1992. There was a vision of the idea in 1992 that in the second book, persons who make deliveries at the house. 1992, there were not too many of them, at least in Italy, but now there are many of them. He was a hacker as a hobby. It's in our country. It was not so widespread at that. In chapter 2 of that book, it says the address of a half dozen of networks of communication, electronic communications, and an address in the metaverse. Therefore, Hero doesn't know where he is, but he's in a universe that's generated by the computer that the machine is designing in his big eyes and pumping into his ears. In the jargon of the sector, this imaginary place is called Metaverse. A hero spends a lot of time in the Metaverse. It helps him to forget his life at deposit. Persons can be. The idea is that if a person has a boring life, that the Metaverse can create a more interesting existence for the problems. In the ethical problems, we need to take a look at the implications of this, the psychological effects of this. We need to take a look at this. There are persons who, in addition to companies, the investment of $34 million to create a digital soul of the metaverse, digital soul in Korea, capital of Korea. Objectives of a smart city, digital smart city, would be offices and public services that would be virtual, museums and virtual tours, conferences, festivals, and mass events, and fintech lab. And so, is the metaverse a success from medical point of view? Not always. The European Union has launched the organization, this global gateway page. It's an official page for persons from 18 to 35 years of old. We've organized a 24-hour-long beach party. It cost €387,000, and there were only 6 participants to this beach party. One was a journalist. One of them was a journalist. It wasn't a big success. Not only because the European Union made a mistake here, because the same Meta provided that that it would have 500,000 visitors every month in 2002, but less than 200,000 came. They're aiming to 280,000 at the end of 2020. There are 10,000 worlds, and only 9% are frequented by at least 50 persons. Many visitors try Horizon Worlds for a month, and that's it, and then they leave it. The half of the Oculus visors are not used, have not been used for at least 6 months. Those are taken from the Wall Street Journal. Okay. On this game, in the medical field with Asimov. No, I was talking about Asimov earlier. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Dante. Now, who creates these worlds? Someone makes them be. Some are created by children, some are created by robots, some are created by authors. And Inferno Canto 1, in the middle of the road of our lives, I found myself in a wild forest whose and my direction was lost. This is the classical illustration. This is what artificial intelligence has produced. But this expression really grasps the situation that we are. Maybe it's a little bit more eliminated than the image that you see here of Dante, but it gets across the idea. No, this is another part of Dante here. Okay, this is from Canto 5 of the Inferno. Love, who has never loved or never forgiven, took him by. This is really dystopic and worrisome. This idea here seem to be many persons and one life, and only 3 have something that illuminates them. It's very worrisome. I tried to change the parameters a little bit in order to get across something to this. This is a painting that was created by artificial intelligence. This really leaves us this love which does not forgive, this love that's so strong, which does not abandon, that you cannot abandon it. It's generated in an artificial intelligence. This is a completely different reading from the last one, and then
era un divertismento, era molto carino fare. Beh, forse la più Ulisse che dice.
Now Ulysses says, considered your cements, the fact that you did not live as brutes, but to follow virtue and knowledge. This Renaissance framework where I interpreted it as someone who treats another person, to use the virtue and conscience and the aspect of the doctor and of the clinical personnel who treat people, because a person has been wounded in the foot, let's say, for example, and someone's healing. And this is how this text interprets artificial intelligence. Now let's take a look at medicine now. This is an anecdote from 8th of October, 2021. Thomas Prescott, he underwent a visit of a checkup visit with the Dr. Joseph Schmidt. Long distance medicines and Metaverse have something to do with this. Now, Thomas Prescott was an astronaut in orbit around the Earth in the International Space Station, while the Joseph Schmidt was on Earth. And not only it was a video call that they did, because they used technology which they had transported with them, a visor that allowed them to see holograms. This was what the astronaut saw, as if the doctor was in front of him. It's a little bit of blurring of the programmer, like when we obfuscate with pixels, which is the same thing that Giovanni here, and every once in a while this it eats our side dishes. So, but now a digital version of Dr. Schmidt appeared, who did an anamnesis of Basquet for a routine checkup of the astronaut. And this is long distance technology we see here. Now, telemedicine might be an aspect that the metaverse could bring about. People with motor disabilities who might be able to walk places where there are no hospitals that are dedicated to them, or they might suffer rare pathologies. So specialists are only a few who are located in certain parts of the world. That could be a useful application. There are aspects of here, and medicine can play a very important role. Or maybe what we said earlier, operations that are guided by long distance robots where specialists could help them through a robot, even though they're far away. But also at the level of training. You could educate people in many interventions in the world. That's why I said that if If you are in the metaverse, the hospital might be a national hospital of the University of Seoul. They carried out a operation on a lung, which is carried out by 12 surgeons in the world, in order to be almost present, to have a three-dimensional vision of this operation on the lung. There's a lot of publicity on this regarding training for the anatomical aspect of medicine for doctors, for future doctors, using virtual reality. Now the support of artificial intelligence for clinical diagnosis. For example, I have a colleague, a friend, who they are developing and working on a project of 3,000, because artificial AI, through a recording of the patient and doctor say to each other during the interview, they can find words, clear keywords, and which they are put onto the clinical history without the doctor even having to write it. Those the results of the interview are put there. There may be problems of privacy and also problems of cost, not because these things cost a lot, but when we're talking about physiological parameters, we need more connections. We're talking about big data. There are risks of leaving behind those who do not have access to health of the care of this type. So it must be healthcare that is very public. It does not fall on the population. That we should not leave behind certain parts of the population. Now, regarding odors, in order to diagnosis, this is one limit that we still have. Now, many authors are writing in this field. Now, this group is there's this one Japanese group. Okay, here we have a category of words that fall into this field. The robots and virtual realities. My digital twin, for example, which is analogous in the digital world. Okay. Artificial intelligence. Okay. We have a kind of medical. Now, in this article, still, they show the fundamental points of all the platforms of the metaverse, so they be inclusive of the elderly population or more behind regions of the world who can have access to this digital world. Now, we need to have a framework of where we want to go, that it be inclusive. You see here, the virtual native is written here. And that people at various ages and various regions and various socioeconomic strata, so that they all be included. Now, an international association has already appeared, which deals with metaverse and medicine. It's already formulated a consensus of experts in this year and defined in 2022 as the first year of the metaverse and medicine, in which they define the metaverse and medicine connected to medicine practice through our augmented reality. Okay, and they've identified it together with Zucker 60 fields of medical application which metaverse could give a positive contribution. Okay, and from cardiology to neurosciences, you see here that connect immunology, infection, psychosis, and psychology. So here is a great field, a big field, and symptomology, oncology, and also other pathologies. Okay? In what way could the metaverse have a positive impact? There could be meta hospitals. What's a meta hospital? Could be.
L'ha vissuto in prima persona come medico.
Giovanni, okay, the change. Now Now we're talking about here the electronic
tramite a cloud e quindi tu la ricevi, puoi stare dall'altra parte del mondo, ricevi la lastra del paziente. Quindi c'è tutto un aspetto diverso, quindi piattaforme cloud che possono essere utili per i medici, per i pazienti, per i terapisti, per chi insegna, per i consulenti.
Now, we're talking about here the use of the introduction of the digital medical charts instead of just the written medical charts, and how it can be accessed by many, many different figures that can help with to improve diagnosis and treatments and monitoring, and also for science to be able to write articles for clinical research, etc. Can be helpful for that. All of this can be supervised and connected with artificial intelligence, because AI can support the diagnosis and eventually for that reason, and to help us understand when a surgical intervention might be necessary. Now, Morley, my right, for example, now, for example, if I have one of these Apple hand watches that monitor the number of heartbeats that I have, and may tell me, my family, say, look, there are discrepancies with respect to physiology. I need to take a check. But monitoring, which foresees the first, here we can see the importance of prevention. Why not in the daily life look at our parameters, our medical parameters, and maybe have a prediction to be able to know that there's an alteration of the heartbeat, which could tell us that within an hour that a heart attack could happen through the monitoring of but now who would have access to all these data in the our AI in our apps could check this and say, okay, maybe your now maybe in Metaverse on the cloud, my family doctor might be alerted. Or maybe a patient falls in his house as a fall that an elderly person who falls. Or maybe a person is stopped and doesn't have a lot of heartbeats in the middle of the night, and maybe an alarm could be triggered. The analysis of the voice at Tor Vergata during COVID, they tried to develop a app, and by listening to how a person by monitoring how a person spoke or coughed, they could see the risk of being affected by COVID because the pronunciation of certain words changed, and include assistance for the elderly. Metaverse induces long distance. Okay. We experienced and we saw kids who played together on digital platforms during the pandemic. And a holographic intelligence. Let's see the ambulance that communicates with the hospital, or various hospitals. There are zones in which there's an increase of pathologies, maybe for bacteriological flows or viral flows, and to see that there's a risk in certain places. We thought that we got, or that the Spanish flu of 1919, 1920, or maybe the resurgence of the Black Plague, to monitor mass data to see if there's some certain things that are coming up. And the sharing of protocols and rehabilitative training and cognitive training and interventions through the teaching of or virtual training, not just looking at a video, but at this point it could, why the surgeon operates, or the rehabilitation agent helps a patient. Now, the metaverse is a set of the internet and rehabilitative and virtual reality phenomenon, and also AI. The internet, the artificial intelligence, rehabilitation techniques, and virtual reality. There's a telerehabilitation, prognosis, Michelangelo Effect. We'll talk about this later. Now, telemedicine. What's this? 2019? During the pandemic, there was an interesting document that came out, 2010. Before the pandemic, there was this document, Telemedicine. The problem is that there are 110 definitions of telemedicine, but still, many people use the word telemedicine, but they aren't able to define it yet. No, is just sending a request online for a prescription and then him sending me the medicine. Is that telemedicine, or is it something a little bit wider than that?
Un concetto troppo vago. Però
the World Organization of Health Issues, Global Observatory for Health Services, the idea that we might be able to bring together patients and doctors and reduce distances to bring treatments and prevention to people, and research and evaluation. Okay. We're not speaking about implementation telemedicine services during COVID-19, guiding principles and consideration for a stepwise approach. The WHO said at the moment the evidence is limited. Telemedicine has been limited and mixed. No definite conclusion can be drawn about its effectiveness in improving patient outcome and well-being, behavior change. For example, treatment adherence, disease prevention, cost effectiveness, or patient satisfaction. We need to provide training for practitioners on managing medical legal risks associated with telemedicine, including taking into account the limits of technology when making diagnosis and recommending treatment. We need to put in place systems to accommodate technological limitations as well. Some have asked patients and to doctors and nurses how much in 2021, how they might have benefited from telemedicine during COVID. Patients, which are very happy. You see the doctors are less content. The percent of doctors that positive, that say yes, that telemedicine is satisfied patients, because they were always connected, but the doctor was always interrupted from by WhatsApp messages and continuous interruption. That's it. I would be happy. I'm not doing my work well, and I'm happy that you're connected. So patients here are very happy with it, but doctors are not. Now what's the strength of telemedicine? Prevention of transmission of infection and saving time. Now, what were the weaknesses of telemedicine? Incomplete increase of doctors' workload. It seemed to increase the workload of doctors. Now, what are the most difficult areas of this telemedicine? For example, all the post-opera management were the points of the various. Okay, and patients were asymptomatic patients who needed physical examinations and to be there with them. Now what should be the 3 requirements of medicine? There's a need to develop platforms. It's not just that's not telemedicine. It's not just you need to hear the patient and to understand better, and to use it under specific conditions. It was work of Santa Lucia, telerehabilitation during COVID-19 in children. You see there was an increase in improvement of these children. It's not from October 2019 to 2020. We continued this medicine. In September of 2020, they continued to increase it with a similar increase so it was a good result that it was not really stopped by the pandemic phenomenon. No, we worked in the use of gaming technology for pediatric neurorehabilitation. We saw in this there's a lot of variability here, problems with the brain. Okay, cerebral palsy is probably the total number of children and adolescents is 573. 58% of them are affected by cerebral palsy. A lot of work has been done with cerebral palsy in video gaming technology. Despite the wide variability of the adopted protocols, devices, assessment tools, and a more frequent focus on motor aspects, okay, a lot of work still needs to be done in this. But okay, now let's go from video games to virtual reality. Virtual reality is very widely used in rehabilitation. It's seen an improvement in certain functions, which include cognitive functions, which are connected to cognitive improvement, but not specific improvement of certain functions. Now, from the point of view of cognition, there are results that are encouraging here in this field. For example, in cognitive rehabilitation with kids with autism, there are certain scenarios. Metaverse could be used, could implement virtual schools and playing games in the park where children could be trained in the virtual world, which they could then bring to use what they learn there in the real world. This could be very important for those who suffer from autism, which have problems of social interaction. They've seen that they have improvement in their social skills, recognition of emotions, and social and executive functions. Okay. We started years ago with virtual realities, but I want to show you this, the protocol that is giving a lot of satisfaction. In this case, these are our students, our female students who are working. This is a Klimt painting. The individual goes into a virtual room. We're in front of a white
con cui interagisce e
they uncover a work of art. We are testing this. Now, we've seen that patients are very happy. This is called the Michelangelo Effect. Art improves the performance in a virtual reality task development for upper limb neurorehabilitation. To do an analysis task where there's no art, the patients have more problem, and they need to be very precise in the movements. But here, for this example, this patient who interacts with this Caravaggio painting with this TG2. Okay, this is what was on the Italian television. This is how they presented it. The patient has this possibility to evaluate how they were. What we're showing how this improvement in groups of patients which were treated with respect to those who were treated otherwise. Studies are still being done, and we're getting very good optimal results, and patients are very happy. Here we have the programs of our program. No. The concept, what's the concept here? We put the famous components, the 4 C's of the metaverse. We had scientific, we used to use neuroaesthetic and neurotherapy for neurorehabilitation. We used creativity because patients find themselves, it's almost like they feel like they're painting the work of art. We used culture and the connection that is personally. Let's say this Sicilian patient says, I can't come to Rome to do training. I have to do it at home. This is the concept of the metaverse, to be able to share training which are born in certain parts of the world and to be able to share them with people who aren't there. Another thing that we did, we said, now let's bring art to hospitals so patients can be rehabilitated 3 hours a day. What should a patient do? Just spend 12 hours in his room and just sit in front of the TV, boring TV? No, we can bring a museum to them. They can have a helmet of a virtual reality, and a patient can be brought into the Etruscan Museum of Rome at Villa Giulia and can see the sarcophagus of the spouses, and they can manipulate it and move around it and see it in a remote way. And we can record all the movements of their eyes, and we can record through a bandana on their forehead, the prefrontal lobes, and the attention that they pay, and the emotional charge, and through their cutaneous we have possibility to record physiological parameters, and through the fact that the patient just visited the museum through a virtual reality helmet. This is the concept of metaverse. Antiliterum. Okay, no. We look at AI and neurorehabilitation. Exponentially, we see the growth of the two terms, neurorehabilitation, where we put more than one article a day comes out in this field. With what aims? Diagnostic scopes, rehabilitative aims, and prognosis aims. Be able to identify the best therapy to use, and to identify the best therapy, robots, and non-invasive stimulators or brain-computer interfaces, and the demographic data or clinical data in order to predict the outcome for prognosis. The first one says demographic data and clinical data for diagnosis and evaluation. Now, Ariana, artificial intelligence assistant for neural network analysis. Now, we spoke about this in another seminar. Artificial neural network analyzing wearable device gate data for now. Here we talk about artificial neural networks for patients who have strokes. No, the comparison among regression, neural network, and cluster analysis between. Sorry, there are certain limits of this of AI. Inventive to make to automatically things that have never been done before. We need to learn from data. We can create it's based on recurring patterns in the sample that's given, the data sample. Therefore, under aspects that are of smaller dimensions are not taken into consideration. Abstract reasoning, limits of accuracy regarding sensibility and specificity, and applicability to things that are not capturable with the data. Now, at this point, I would hand on the floor to Giovanni Moroni, together with other groups in Italy. Once again, is rather advanced regarding these approaches to this technology. What did we hope from the metaverse and meta-rehabilitation and neurorehabilitation? Fact, fake, or fiction, or vision?
E anche una possibile visione che vogliamo dare a quali sono le applicazioni.
Here we have the. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Marco. I continue. And I will take my kind of now. I'm going to talk about metaverse and neurorehabilitation. First of all, we need to frame how our neurorehabilitation is closely connected to neurosciences, but also closely connected to an organization of the bedside where the patients need to be treated, which very often are severely disabled. So we need a multidisciplinary assistance and treatment and intensive. So in front of the growing increase of needs that need to be satisfied from the neurorehabilitative point of view, we know that first of all, the impossibility to increase healthcare spending and an increase of persons who will have need for it. We know that. We see it as decade to decade. Our healthcare systems has changed. It reduced the part of the period of recovery in hospitals, and we see the increase more and more the part of outpatient status and how they only go to the hospital to do rehabilitation. Now, before the pandemic in 2010 and 2020, thanks to the push of the pandemic, we see the birth and appearance and growth of the house as a place of treatment and a progressive approaching of of shortening recovery phases. This imposes on us an acceleration of certain rehabilitative aspects which are fundamental, which might be technologies advance in brain form of plastic. Okay, no, to promote recovery and okay. We know that in the last decades, neurorehabilitation is one of its most important improvements come from, for example, deep brain stimulation. The authors don't speak about this, but it wasn't the metaverse wasn't present yet. But the second most important aspect of innovation here is to consider the brain and the encephalus is much more plastic than we used to think it was in past decades. This brings to us opens a great therapeutic window and opportunity, an extraordinary possibility of improvement of comprehension of the brain, but also puts in front of us a kind of responsibility, an ethical responsibility, because we know that our brain changes. It changes against our will even. It's an innate process which can be accelerated and determined circumstance after a cerebral lesion or during adolescence or during childhood, but it can be a negative thing. There can be a network, a neuroplastic network. It can be a consequent to our mistaken decisions, therapeutic decisions that are mistaken, or it could be a passivity or non-true choice or immobility towards a type of neurorehabilitation. No, certainly the idea of neurorehabilitation has changed, definitely. For several years, we cannot say various decades, we can speak of the change of concepts that regard motor control and of spasticity, which is one of the most important aspects of rehabilitation. I'm referring to Cabot and Robert. But we speak also of specific a task of engagement of the patient and of a doses, the importance of intensity and rehabilitative stimulation. It must be adequate to the therapeutic context as a drug. Cannot get maybe the drug needs to be correct, but it needs to be adequate, but it may not respond to the in the same way. And we speak about cardiorespiratory insufficiency. We could speak of interaction of numerous feedback mechanisms that can really be strong conditioning agents of neuroplasticity. Here we see neurorehabilitation has grown as a science to itself. There's been a good interaction with the new technologies in this field, to understand the effectiveness and to compare ourselves to engage different technologies like neurorobotics and virtual and the metaverse and remote gaming. These have all improved and refined our paradigms of neurorehabilitation. Now, of time and the fact that technologies, we continue to be at the clinical level as neurorehabilitation. We seem to be very avid for innovation, but many very rarely do these and with an agree with, but they are converted very slowly into innovation. They have an impact on the cure and treatment of the patient. And here, this is what we need. Now, in case it's doubtless that the dialogue from the medical point of view regarding virtual reality, as Marco said, It's absolutely new in the medical field, particularly in neurorehabilitation. They speak of basing. Okay. No, the Mark spoke of the use of meta. Okay. Now dialogue is improving, from Cochrane, which is an important instrument of the analysis. Cochrane, sorry. This is important for medical analysis. Virtual the medicine does have positive effects.
Delle abilità, diciamo, dell'arto superiore in particolare, però
Cochrane presents points of negative points as well. In particular, it confuses and unites studies of control trials and where patients undergo therapy for the with various devices. You see some which are not medical devices, which are built, for example, as a game, like kickboxing or other. Some can be negative because of that technological. Okay, Xbox console, sorry. Consoles. Okay, these are different. So this is the use of games as therapies. Why consoles? The use of Xbox consoles, the use of Amaro Springs, the Karen system.
Che ben conosce le tecnologie.
No.
Da qualche anno a questa parte, chiaramente anche, diciamo, proprio a testimonianza del miglioramento del dialogo.
There are many articles here on Lancet gives us the possibility to speak of neurorehabilitation. This is very important. It speaks of virtual reality, which is non-immersive, to reduce fall risk in older adults, a randomized control trial.
Riabilitativo per quanto riguarda il rischio di caduta, oppure in pazienti che hanno...
This has an application in multiple sclerosis therapies. Okay, does non-immersive virtual reality improve attention processes in severe traumatic brain injury? This is some encouraged data from a pilot study we see here. Now, virtual reality is among the most powerful technological devices that allows us to furnish and to administrate to patients a rehabilitation of top-down type. They integrate a rehabilitation that aims to the motor recovery of an activity or a movement regarding the upper limbs or lower limbs, but that it have an involvement, unitive or sensorial cooperation, or sensorial involvement, or multisensorial involvement. In some way, it must be processed by higher cognitive functions. May have contents, a significant cognitive importance. Certainly gives us a great advantage in patients who have problems of carrying out a type of rehabilitation, which is more performance enhancing than the classical neurorehabilitative, conventional rehabilitative approaches. We need to be able to, we need a sufficient minimum cognition in order to be able to manage a type of top-down rehabilitation. It's not for all patients, but it's in the enormous adaptability of these systems have the characteristic to make them very usable for certain patients. And we see this, our relationship with technological devices. We know that at this point that robots is not only mobilizes the use of our limbs, upper or lower, that they might be, but even our senses, and can furnish us good feedback, and they become now, from movement to thought and back, a review to the role of cognitive factors influencing technological neurorehabilitation. Movement from visual perception which allows us to refer to internal models that contain information on the properties and objects in operational terms.
Sempre afferiscono alle sfere delle funzioni esecutive e delle attenzioni, e quindi diciamo
know
sappiamo
that
che in condizioni attentive valide l'apprendimento, il motor relearning è molto molto più valido che diciamo che
remote learning is much okay. Remote learning is very dependent on attention capacity of the person involved in it. If you don't have a capacity of no.
Diciamo, può giustificare quella che in passato poteva essere un'estrema variabilità dell'efficacia riabilitativa. Noi ci siamo trovati davanti per tanti
many
anni.
years. We found patients that were vulnerable because they had cognitive deficiency or attention deficiency, which did not respond to rehabilitation well. Now, this article came out just a few days ago, integrated robot-assisted therapy into neurorehabilitation clinical practice. Where are we now, and where are we heading?
Facendo una serie di pubblicazioni sulla rivista Neurorehabilitation.
This is from the magazine Neurorehabilitation, sorry, the journal Neurorehabilitation. It's from this year. It's very recent, just a few days ago this came out. Now no one says that robotics has changed the fate of neurorehabilitation. Some are questionable, some are being validated by clinical trials. And what has changed? Neurorehabilitation has changed. The way we look at it has changed. And us clinicians, we've changed. We're more open to looking at the technological devices as a means in order to administrate our therapies, our own therapies. We know that technologies can absolutely help us in the evaluation. And we know that neurorehabilitation doesn't only speak the language of a method, but it speaks a language that is integrated by concepts that have come out thanks to new technologies. Yes. Now, regarding the metaverse, we know that as Professor Joseph illustrated, has a very close connection with virtual reality and augmented reality. Augmented reality for rehabilitative medicine have been an enormous step forward, not only in terms of top-down approach, as we've seen, but also in the methodological aspects that they involve, the administration of a cognitive test, for example, or the aspects of telerehabilitation, or for example, the cognitive aspect where it's very developed. For example, we know that reality, augmented and virtual reality exists. The metaverse, it goes beyond the universe, which the root of the word says. It's a post-reality. It's a post-reality universe. It's a perpetual and persistent multi-user environment which merges physical reality with digital virtuality. There are three modalities in order to administrate cognitive, which are virtual reality, augmented reality, and reality that can help us depending on the type of patient that we have. We can
in termini di modalità di recupero e di modalità di, diciamo, di neuroplasticità. Questo articolo ci fa vedere un'analisi bibliometrica del metaverso.
Gives a bibliometric. This comes from the journal Metaverse Shape of Your Life and Future. This is a bibliometric snapshot. Bibliometric snapshot here.
Diciamo la medicina e l'e-learning. La
medicine is relearning, is rehabilitation. Okay. Now, what is the fundamental aspect of the difference? The dividing aspect between conventional rehabilitation, which can include a feedback, virtual reality, which is immersive, in the metaverse. In this aspect, there's a sense of presence, which is caused by the 3D environment, which is the specific technique of the environment, gives us something that's fundamental. It gives us physiological reactions, which in particular are perceptive, responsive, and emotional and behavioral responses, psychological and neuropsychological responses. These four aspects show us that there's a modality theory which is very significant. Autonomic, here we see some physiological reactions. There's an atomic response, increase frequency of the heartbeat and skin temperature and the EEG, and perceptive responses, emotional and behavioral responses, physiological and neuropsychological responses. These all affect neuroplasticity. This is a feedback in itself. Here, which is, virtual reality has a real value on the neuroplasticity thanks to physiological reactions. All the four different types. Now, it's a virtual reality, but the impact on our neuroplasticity is real. This is a very important aspect. And from a few months, Marco wanted to imagine the metaverse and neurorehabilitation with our vision. Okay, now, certainly, one of the most important effects that metaverse can give to us in rehabilitation of neurological disorders is certainly the great possibility that it gives us to have the interaction with our body schema, which is when its representation is damaged, is something that's very, very important to us for the human being from the neuroscientific point of view. It's not completely so clear, but certainly it's the fruit of different integration, central integration. It's fundamental for the development, for maturation, and also the execution, motor gesture. Many places of the brain come into play, and one's own corporeal scheme can be static or can be dynamic. And we know that this body image thing is very modifiable, it's very malleable, it's very manipulable, thanks to the metaverse. Here we speak about embodied cognition, which has a large spectrum of potentiality in the rehabilitation setting. In this field, the metaverse, certainly thanks to the capacity to play with the vision of the second and third person with other avatars in different social contexts, it has a very important thing from the neuroscientific point of view and also neurorehabilitative point of view. Now, regarding cognitive disorders, the metaverse, just like virtual reality, is certainly calling to play the restorative aspect, restorative CR, allows the patient to regain their lost cognitive domains by means of specific cognitive training, whereas compensatory CR is based on the use of aids and tools to overcome deficits. VR, virtual reality, can promote the recovery of different cognitive functions, including memory, attention, visuospatial cognition, executive processes, and planning. Virtual reality has led to better outcomes such as MMSE, MOCA, ADL, IADL, and FIM scores than conventional training in patients with different cognitive dysfunction following a stroke. This data was corroborated by changes in the event-related potential, 300, P300 amplitude, multiple sclerosis, MS. It has been demonstrated the use of virtual reality exergaming excluded conventional training for improving cognitive abilities, as well as psychosocial status and fatigue. Unilateral spatial neglect benefit from the improvement of VR-related immersive experiences. Indeed, thanks to the possibility to boost embodied cognition. In fact, the use of the metaverse, thanks to the realistic experience of being there with a therapist, might better work on the attention deficit, not only by strengthening the visual and spatial neglect, but also by acting on the body representation, thus potentially improving agnosia and personal neglect.
Sicuramente la realtà virtuale e il metaverso hanno una indicazione importante. Questo perché è cresciuto ed è
This is why we've seen the improvement of our idea of embodied cognition from the classical Cartesian model that we used to have.
Percezione di queste tre fasi
where the perception of these three phases have been completely detached from each other. Now we have dynamic that we see that there are zones of overlapping where there's perception, action, and environment, and where we give interaction of three components. Okay, not only that do we see
di una funzione esecutiva tanto fondamentale nella nostra vita come
now we can say that sometimes we celebrate ourselves as saying that we only use a little part of the brain as if we have infinite potentialities. This goes against the issue of evolutionary idea that rarely leaves for many generations that were not used. Okay. One important aspect is attention, the cerebral function, which is very, very lacking regarding attention aspects, the shift. The differentiating among the bio and augmented feedback and technologically assisted rehabilitation.
Interagire anche con le nostre tecniche di riabilitazione. Lasciando da parte l'attenzione.
Now, leaving the aspect of attention capacity aside, we've seen the integration of progressive and integration of virtual reality. They give us certain feedback. Now, these are fundamental ingredients for learning outcomes,
funzione plasticità dipendente,
which are plastic dependent. Okay, now.
Ci ha richiesto molto lavoro in termini di concettualizzazione e di studio, ma di grande soddisfazione, diciamo soprattutto anche grafica, e possiamo dire
we can say that feedback can have a different way to be depicted or represented here. It can have a different valence. It can be positive, it can be negative, positive, depending on how we present feedback to the patient. It can motivate the patient and also can improve his neuroplasticity. No. Neurofeedback is different from biofeedback. Okay. Now, cognitive functions. No, VR at the clinical level, the different pathologies and different rehabilitations objectives. Now, executive functions, attention, working, memory, response, inhibition, fatigue perception, motivation, engagement, participation, depression, sensory motor involvement, pyramidal and extrapyramidal spasticity. Now, if we move on to the benefits of the metaverse in children, which are affected by cerebral palsy, here we can see some developmental pathology, such as mild, moderate cerebral palsy. This disease represents the synthesis of the cognitive, sensory, motor, and behavioral developmental deficits of a child, and would find in the metaverse an opportunity to carry out a true multidimensional rehabilitation, thanks to a well-tested and customized rehabilitation protocol. Many studies have already reported positive results of clinical trials based on digital gaming technologies, VR, AR, and exergaming mechanism that reduces movement, intention, and action. Although caution is needed for children and with cerebral palsy because of their risk of epilepsy. The population seems to be an important target for metaverse activities, as well as for improving their participation, based on an active inclusion in schooling and clinical programs based on the new approaches of e-learning, edutainment or infotainment, and gamification. Edutainment and infotainment are related. Okay. And we see in these children an overlapping and in the metaverse seems to be ideal use, and they can really be useful to enlarge a type of rehabilitation, a multidimensional rehabilitation for children. Certainly there are certain aspects that need to be considered well, depending on the seriousness and the type of we have to be careful to avoid the problem of epilepsy, as I already said, where we have too much flashing that can trigger epileptic seizures. We need to be able to create clear criteria of exclusion for this therapy.
Con la scuola molto importante, e questo può essere, diciamo, sicuramente potenziato dall'aspetto del metaverso.
Okay. Now, another aspect of cognition, the human condition, sorry, is frailty, which is not pathologic, but is very important. But exposes us to the pathology is a world problem of fragility. Fragility is not a pathological condition per se, but it is an accelerated aging of the cognitive and motor capacities, which all this condition is not a disease per se. Aging brain and other sustained-induced behavioral complications that need to be treated in order to avoid more serious outcomes. The metaverse would allow for a motivating and multidimensional rehabilitation and socialization. Thanks to the metaverse, older, frail individuals could train motor and cognitive problems at the same time, and those individuals with social restrictions due to a geographic or physical, due to geography or their physical situation and their behavioral cognitive barriers may benefit from this tool. The adjunctive use of sensors might give clinical staff information regarding the online and offline patient's performance during training, the amount and quality of movement, for example.
Molto attenzionata dall'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità e della Medicina in generale, l'aspetto di recupero dopo un evento non maggiore o di prevenzione del metaverso
Here we can see accelerated 3 possibility. We have a chart on the bottom left of the peak of body functions. Okay. No. Let's think of the aspect of the benefits of metaverse in pain management. VR is in the better and more advanced form in the coming years, seems to be the most promising and powerful non-invasive tool to treat and manage pain. The VR is a mind-body treatment, virtual reality, that can distract the mind from pain and reduce pain signals from reaching the brain. It is like a drug-free supplement to traditional pain management technique to reduce fear and anxiety, especially among children and people who are at advanced age. Therapeutic virtual reality can potentially reduce the demand for pain management drugs and the side effects associated with them, with their use. The internal focus during rehabilitation is more suitable when the aim is to improve sensory motor feedback and feed forward components during motor rehabilitation, while the external focus is more suitable when there's a pain maladaptive mechanism that reduces movement, intention, and action. can't propose it as an exclusive way use as exclusive aspect of pain management. Certainly, we still need drugs and invasive techniques, but it must be must accompany. It could potentially reduce the use and demand for drugs. Virtual reality could play the role of, in the past it was defined as distraction, but it can have a rehabilitative, to administrate a kind of, it can have an external and internal focus.
Now,
if a person who has pain in a certain limb and they are made to do an exercise where they have to focus their intention not on the part that has
come sta andando, diciamo, l'esercizio, quindi un focus esterno, avrò la
There are two ways to use virtual reality, with an external focus of attention or an internal focus of attention. He's describing this right now. Okay, now the metaverse can be used to enhance the patient participation. The WHO's differentiating of health-related states, impairment, A, impairment distinguished from B, activity limitations, and C, participation restriction. Okay, participation is defined as involvement, quote unquote, involvement in life situations, whereas participation, quote unquote, problems as an individual may experience in involvement in life situations. In medical rehabilitation, the degree of participation during neurorehabilitation protocols or at discharge is often neglected. We have a chart here, health, where the health condition is in the box above, for example, CP or ASD. And then in the middle, we see the activity in red box. The left-hand side, body structure and function. Right-hand side, participation. Bottom right, you have a box that says, where it's written personal factors. And bottom left, a box including environmental factors, where they're considered. Okay.
Ovvero, diciamo, sul prendere il pane, recarsi, diciamo, in un posto e soprattutto, diciamo, non attuiamo nessuna pratica per la rieducazione e la partecipazione sociale. La partecipazione e la restrizione della partecipazione è definita come un problema, diciamo, di una persona che una persona sperimenta.
Now, here we're talking about participation as it is defined as involvement in life situations. Often the therapies are only focused on reacquiring the skill, but not how it's actually used in real situations. VR, virtual reality, can help us a lot with that, potentially, because it could you could have certain scenarios in virtual reality.
Ma recupera parzialmente. Ecco, questo, il paziente a 30 anni deve essere reintegrato in famiglia e nel posto di lavoro. Per lui sarà anche per, diciamo, per tutto l'ambiente, quando tornerà con delle funzioni motorie e cognitive, diciamo, parzialmente ridotte se ben funzionanti. Però a questo
virtual reality could help in the case, for example, of a 30-year-old who recovers from very severe COVID, where their cognitive and body functions are somewhat reduced.
Con le dovute precauzioni, cioè identificandone pazienti ideali per la cura, indicazioni e controindicazioni, tempo di esposizione, monitorare le eventuali frustrazioni, monitorare gli eventuali effetti collaterali. Insomma, una terapia è un mondo neuroriabilitativo da creare.
Here we're talking about the possibility of coming up with very particular protocols for patients who, for them to be completely reintegrated into society and the workplace, instead of just being thrown into the world after severe illnesses. Okay, now here we can take a look at now the VR and the metaverse makes certain things possible that were impossible before. Development of 3D network multi-user virtual reality environment for home therapy after a stroke. This is real frontier. The final aspect here, the arrival of metaverse in neurorehabilitation, fact, fake, or vision. Finally, the influence of the metaverse for healthcare digitalization and artificial intelligence in support of prevention and or early diagnosis should not be underestimated. In fact, the digital avatar based on biometric data and implemented with other medical information such as blood analysis and imaging texts, RX, CT, MRI, PET scans, could facilitate the aforementioned objectives. Okay. Let's say a test could be uploaded in the metaverse and our AI and could
TAC polmonare, la nostra TAC cerebrale e l'intelligenza artificiale
AI could mix all of this information and synthesize all of our tests, give us and could maybe even predict certain possible. So we'd have a healthcare file, you could say. We spoke about this for the decades in the healthcare system.
Anche se della stessa città sembrano dialogarsi, però ci dà anche delle problematiche, dei scenari non poco felici.
But there's also the issue of possibility of centralizing data, a kind of dystopic. Under what conditions could healthcare insurance might want to have access to that information to give you insurance based on your tests? They make us shiver if we think about them. No, that's one cautionary tale. Okay. Something we need to prevent abuse of data collection. Okay, now the arrival of metaverse in neurorehabilitation, fact, fake, or vision. We see this chart that we saw earlier once again. Okay, where the outer bubble says social interactions. Inside of that, there's personalization of the experience, and then in the very center, cyber-physical devices.
Quindi vi è un'esperienza assolutamente personalizzata, cucita addosso al paziente, con degli algoritmi ad hoc che adattano, diciamo, la difficoltà cognitiva motoria, lo scenario ambientale.
The sense of agency, the sense of presence, and the sense of body ownership.
Questa finora non c'era stata ancora prevista.
No. The metaverse is a 3D environment online, which is online on the internet. It can be navigated through avatars with the aim of creating an organization, digital organization, that is parallel and complementary to the real one. The metaverse exists independently in the whether you're present or not, and maintains the consequences of our actions even in our absence. Various sensible themes that we could go more. There are various themes there are sensitive themes that we could go more deeply into. Now, this is the strong metaverse. STRONG is we could have a salon where patients could come in. There could be the salon of clinical botegas. In one's own bottega, the partner could illustrate his own activities like a real window, a well of ideas, receive or request proposals of collaboration, professional and economic collaboration. He could manage and okay, but the metaverse, which if it's applied to a structure of rehabilitation, a new rehabilitative solutions, which are cognitive, motor, or postural, could foresee the collaboration and our competition between patients directly on the metaverse, a strong metaverse platform, the STRONG metaverse. Now, from a one-size-fits-all protocol to knowledge-based, or one-size-fits-all protocols to knowledge-based neurotechnologies for personalized treatment. One-size-fits-all treatment strategies, limitations, clinical needs, identification of innovative rehabilitation strategies, which are based on okay. they need to be integrated with genetic characteristics of the patients. No. The technological approaches for neurorehabilitation, from robotic devices to brain stimulation, etc. Here's some take-home messages for you all now. Virtual technologies are only a means. The person is the end, is the aim. The emotions and imaginations are the fruit of virtual reality, and the metaverse are real, like those of a dream. They are a work of art, or like those of Alice in her dream. Virtual realities are okay. We really need neuroscientific principles on which to found our rehabilitative protocols. Emotions and the imagination, which are the fruit of virtual reality and of the metaverse, are real as a dream, or a work of art, or as real as Alice in her dreams. Virtual technologies are only a means. The person is the aim. The person is the end. Okay, thank you for these two fascinating presentations. They really opened, and they do open, many points of reflection and many questions that we have. Claudio had, I wanted to make a question, ask a question, which is also reflection. It's very interesting. This means that, okay, we have the obligation to continue these meetings, in addition to the headache that came to me, not only because of
riflessioni filosofiche, no? Che mi venivano man mano che
these ideas that came to me as you spoke, as the speaker spoke, as the professor spoke, regarding, first of all, the positivity of medicine, also the metaverse. I did in my doctorate, I made some reflections on an experiment that in England was done on healthcare. Okay, in England, this experiment, which was transplanted into Rwanda, the benefit was that the oppositions that the doctors made, I remember one doctor saw in this telemedicine kind of deprofessionalization of his just presence. Certainly his presence was humanistic aspect was less, but it gave him to gave access to millions of people in Rwanda to certain healthcare professional training, which wasn't possible before the metaverse. No, I'm listening to you in your research. Now, philosophically,
mi fischiano un po', diciamo, le orecchie perché
my ears, one thing is really pulling my attention. We should not demonize all the concept.
Qual è fondata la nostra filosofia moderna e contemporanea. Kant
spoke to us
tempo.
About space and time. This space and time are demolished by the concept of the metaverse. A lot of our paradigms are kind of crumble. We have a space and time, but it's a different space and different time concepts. We have based all of our Darwinian, our previous physics, but it's as if in some way as we move forward, we return to the cavern of Plato. We see a reality, it's not that, but it's inverted reality, because at this point, it's the slave that is freed. He needs to explain to me which of the two realities is the real one. It's evident which one is, but is it evident? We might risk ending up with a refinement of technology in which universe we're living in. Another reflection is that of the work of art, of how how our relationship with technology is experienced. Philosophy has a treatise of Benjamin on the work of art and the time of technical reproductivity, and the point at which he made a distinction from the musical work or the painting, because you can see the painting today with internet. We might not go to the museums physically anymore because we can see them online, but there's a limit, for example, in technical reproducibility regarding a musical reproduction, or in the theater. It's done it's finished in the moment in which it finishes. The moment in which the work finishes, it's completed, it's finished. Now, in these fractions of hymns and his attention between the presence and non-presence, you developed reflection of contemporary philosophy on the modalities of perception of spiritual existence. These are only some of them because of all those reflections which maybe would be nice. It would have been nice to face them together. Maybe on that, we could talk a lot about that if you want to, but there are some fascinating disputes going on. You mentioned Plato's cavern. It's not by chance that certain systems of creative virtual reality, which are done in cave. No, not only with virtual reality helmets. They are really inspired by Plato, because you see virtual pages, which are like the shadows of Plato's cave. From the philosophical point of view, we can ask ourselves what the reality is really, and what is not reality. Because if these virtual images, generate real emotions in me, and I'll modify my cognitive capacities and movement capacities, I've reached my objective. It's not a problem that they be fake or not. According to Freud, the dream was thought of as something that was not true. And we know the importance that dreams have in our life. Before studying physiology, we all took the existence of colors for granted, but now we know that they're just waves, and that our brain now, maybe does a tree that falls in the forest with no one there make sound or not? Okay, it's really fascinating to meditate on all this. It always has a repercussion. It's true that virtual reality, these worlds will be not true, not tangible, not touchable, but in some way they can produce effects which are tangible and touchable, which can taste and touch, but they bring rise to questions and doubts regarding space-time and quantum mechanics and Einstein's theories. The mechanics of Newton which still today we use practically, we still study in high school, but we know that it's useful, but it hides a lot from us. The world goes much beyond that, and Einstein opened that to us. That we know a lot, that there's much more that we do not know than what we do know. There are things that we also don't, that there's things that are there that we do not know we don't know. Now, art is the mirror of this perception. It's true that art has changed from representation, and that arts can be different from each other. And it's true that our brain interprets art in different ways. Another fascinating thing, neurosthetics, is that if I look at a work of art, I look at it, and motor areas are activated in because probably I know that was done. Or maybe I see an image of a person. Maybe I knew that Fontana made that cut, and I know that that's a work of a man. Okay, therefore, it's extremely fascinating. Sometimes it undermines our certainties. We had a little technical problem where we could not hear you. I could hear him well, yes. Can you hear well? Yes. I'd like to add. Can you not hear me?
Forse perché l'hai scaduto il tempo.
Abbiamo superato.
Maybe we went beyond the limit. Okay, here we are.
Eccoci.
We went beyond schedule. Almost, yeah. Yeah, here we are. I'd just like to add a little comment. Very brief, an interesting reflection. Okay. Clearly, regarding the human relationship with space and time and the myth of the cavern, in the field to its application to the field of neurorehabilitation. Maybe we should absolutely, before introducing, we need to create conditions of criteria of inclusion and exclusion, and to study them. Certainly, the first person would not administer this to, for example, a person who is in schizoid delirium or something, who might already confuse the reality, a person who already has aspects of non-coherence and disorientation regarding space and time, or persons. If you enter to insert another parallel reality, probably we could have a person who we have an increase of delirium, even though they might have an improvement in their motor skills. Regarding the relationship with the reality and the non-reality, I agree with Marco. Something that's complex that needs to be faced. I think it's another greater element of complexity would be when we speak about 20 years in the future, when in 20 or 50 years we will, as humanity and as ontogenetics, will undergo a virtual reality, a metaverse. We realize that we have changed as our brain structure. That will be a big problem. Imagine that in changing our habits, our our brain structure will change. Things will become even more complicated. Can you hear?
Sentite?
Did someone raise their hand?
Noi non vi sentiamo adesso.
I saw a hand raised among the spectators, people who were listening. Now, can you hear me? Yes. Oh, there has been an audio problem, but in any case, I thank you because we have concluded our seminar for today. There was a question, but I can't see it. Okay. Okay. I thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Morone and Macugnosa for their very interesting and fascinating seminar. For those who are following here and those who are connected today, and those who come back to us tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have the translation to English of the seminar. So it will be translated. You'll be translated. There'll be a translation to English language for those who will follow in that language. Okay. Thank you for everything. Well, let's hope that we can meet again, maybe for a dinner or something like that. We can organize a dinner. Okay. Very good. Let's prepare for the next event, which will speak about the reality of the metaverse, which will be an interesting. What is truth? For example, this is a philosophical. Raphael said the seeking of truth in the school of Athens. Aristotle and Plato, that famous painting. So thank you very much. That will be the theme of our next talk. Okay. Thank you for your work. Thank you very much. Ciao, ciao. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody.